Welcome to A Powerless Mage Presents The Deep Dive, where we take your source material, your questions, your struggles, your research, and turn it into something you can actually use.
Exactly. We're here to curate a deep dive just for you, the listener, especially if you're looking for, well, a shortcut.
A shortcut to being well-informed, but more importantly, a shortcut to finding real solutions for those daily struggles that just feel exhausting.
And that feeling of exhaustion is precisely why we're here today. We've all been there.
Oh, absolutely.
You're at the starting line of a new project. Maybe it's a huge career change, or maybe it's something as simple as getting up 30 minutes earlier. You're full of motivation.
And then, just a few steps in, you stumble, you crash.
And today's deep dive is really all about how to stop that cycle, how to stop that self-sabotage by truly understanding the nature of what we call effort.
Okay, let's unpack this because it is such a common, almost universal experience. It drives so much of our search for self-improvement. The end of the year arrives. Or maybe it's just the end of a really unproductive week. You look back at your progress, or maybe the lack of it, and you make that promise to yourself, next year will be different.
Or next week, or tomorrow.
Exactly. You set resolutions, work harder, eat healthier, exercise, be more punctual. And that initial motivation, it's electric, isn't it? You really start strong. You feel that surge of optimism.
But then reality hits. That moment you're forced to choose between the comfortable old way and the difficult new habit. Well, the clock starts ticking.
And for most of us, it ticks pretty fast. The first week ends, maybe the second if you're lucky.
Or maybe you make it all the way through January. And then suddenly you look around and you've dropped it all. Everything.
And that moment of retreat, that giving up, our source material points out, it's always followed by the same thought, the same rationalization. This just requires too much effort.
It feels like pushing a boulder up a slippery hill every single day.
And that perceived cost, that overwhelming sense of resistance, that's the real barrier, isn't it?
It is. The core material we're diving into today focuses on a simple but really profound question. Why does change feel like such a massive physical and mental investment?
And the bigger question, wouldn't it be wonderful to reach those ambitious goals without investing so much of that sheer effort?
Wouldn't that be the dream?
Our mission today is pretty ambitious. We want to show you how to fundamentally transform your approach to your goals. Our source material suggests there is a relatively simple way to do this.
But it requires internalizing one absolute truth about human behavior. About motivation.
And that brings up such an important question, right? If we know exercise is good for us and we know saving money will make us more secure, why does that knowledge alone almost always fail?
That's the disconnect. Today we're going to connect the dots between that fleeting motivation and lasting success. We're going to explain the critical bridge you need to build.
A bridge between that initial flash of desire
and forming a lifelong, almost effortless habit.
Our goal is to uncover that core truth and explain exactly why it works. How to transform the psychological weight of effort into the light, powerful energy of enthusiasm.
We're talking about moving from a punishing chore to a rewarding pursuit.
Let's get started. All right, let's start by analyzing that traditional goal-setting cycle. The one that leads most of us to failure time and time again.
The resolution cycle.
We can call it the resolution cycle breakdown. It's that cycle of focusing on motivation as the main driver, the only fuel in the tank.
And when we start new projects, we're always motivated by comparing our current self.
The struggling, sleepy, dissatisfied version.
To an idealized superhero future self. That initial burst of motivation, it's genuine. It comes from a good place. But the problem is, it's fundamentally unstable.
So by its very psychological definition, motivation is what? A temporary state.
Exactly. It's a temporary, highly emotional state that's fueled by anticipating some future reward. It's not a steady fuel source, it's more like a chemical spike, a quick rush of optimism.
And here's the problem. That spike is fighting against something far, far more powerful.
Inertia.
We hear about inertia in physics, but let's talk about it psychologically. The sources confirm the duration of motivation is just. It's incredibly short.
Days, maybe a week, rarely a whole month.
So motivation constantly needs to be refueled. And it's always fighting against the heavy weight of everyday life, what we're calling inertia.
Think of inertia as the default setting of your current life. It's the gravitational pull of all your established routines, your comfortable habits, your existing preferences.
And it is immensely powerful, it's comfortable, and it resists any change to its direction or its speed.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, This inertia is the silent killer of our goals because it creates an immediate, tangible cost to making a change.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. When you try to start exercising at 6 a.m., your inertia isn't just the warmth of your bed.
Right.
It's the entire established pattern of staying up too late, the fact that you don't have gym clothes prepared, the route you habitually drive to work that doesn't pass the gym.
And even that little mental script that plays in your head.
I am not a morning person.
Oh my God.
Exactly. You have to spend a massive amount of physical and mental energy just to overcome that whole established system.
And that energy spending brings us to another big psychological concept we should probably touch on.
Cognitive load and decision fatigue.
Explain that. What does that mean for someone trying to build a new habit?
Well, when you rely on raw willpower or motivation, every single step requires a conscious decision. Should I wake up now? Should I eat the salad or the burger? Should I start that report or just check social media for a minute?
I see. Every choice is a battle.
Each one of those micro decisions costs you what we can call cognitive dollars. Your brain loves efficiency. It absolutely hates spending these cognitive dollars.
So when you try to start a difficult new habit, you're just burning through your mental energy budget way too fast.
Precisely. That feeling of effort is literally your brain calculating the high costs of all these constant conscious decisions and deciding, you know what, it would be cheaper, energy-wise, to just go back to the way things were.
To revert to the status quo.
And that leads us to the ultimate enemy of motivation, resistance to change.
And the resistance isn't necessarily about being lazy.
Not at all. It's primal energy conservation. Our brains are hardwired by evolution to prefer what's predictable and safe. And since change is unpredictable and requires a high energy investment, the brain just throws up that resistance barrier.
It's basically shouting, "Stop! This is too expensive."
And that's why the conventional path to success, when you look at the exceptional cases, it doesn't focus on sustained motivation. It focuses on the long game.
Which is developing discipline or forming a habit.
The goal is to stop relying on emotion and start relying on automation.
I love the analogy of a flywheel here. It fits perfectly.
It does.
It takes this incredible initial effort, that's the discipline, to get that massive heavy flywheel spinning. That's the strain, the pushing, the sweating.
But once it is spinning, keeping it going requires dramatically less effort than stopping it. The new habit generates its own momentum.
It creates a new inertia. Keeping up the habit becomes easier than breaking it. It just becomes the new normal.
So the goal isn't to be perpetually motivated. The goal is to establish that new inertia. But here's the critical missing link, and this is really where our source material hones in.
Okay.
That initial burst of motivation is almost never strong enough to establish the discipline you need to create that flywheel effect.
So there's a crucial bridge missing.
A bridge is missing between that initial spark, the motivation, and the automated routine, the habit. And most people quit right there on that bridge because the perceived cost is just too high.
I see that, but hold on. If discipline and habits are the ultimate goals, why are we spending so much time talking about enthusiasm? Shouldn't the sources just argue for focusing on brute force discipline and just accepting that the initial effort is necessary?
That's a fundamentally important question. It really is. Because it forces us to define the effort we're trying to eliminate. Discipline is necessary. But our sources suggest we can change the nature of that initial energy expenditure. We want the energy to come from a place of joy, not a place of force.
We want to minimize the mental friction.
So that discipline can actually take root. If you hate every single second of those first few weeks, the resistance will just build up exponentially, making it impossible to get that flywheel started.
So resistance to change exists simply because the perceived cost of the effort feels too high compared to the immediate return. This brings us to another key psychological mechanism.
Yes. Temporal discounting.
Explain that one. It sounds a bit technical.
It's actually very simple. It's the concept that the value of any reward decreases the further away it is in time.
Okay, so a reward later is worth less than a reward now.
Exactly. The logical, intellectual part of your brain knows that losing 50 pounds in 6 months is a massive reward. But the emotional, primal part of your brain values the immediate, tangible reward, like the comfort of the couch or the taste of ice cream, far, far more.
The future reward gets discounted.
Heavily. So the immediate difficulty of saying no to that small daily coffee feels way out of proportion to the huge long-term benefit of, say, having a fully funded emergency savings account.
The $5 now is much louder than the $5,000 next year.
Correct. The moment we decide the effort is disproportionate to the perceived value, which temporal discounting makes inevitable for distant rewards, we just stick with what we know.
Even if we're dissatisfied with it.
Even then, we stop swimming with the current, and we're actively fighting against it. This is why we get stuck in that trap of high friction and high energy cost.
So for you, the listener, who's really identifying with this struggle, let me offer a reflective question. Think deeply about a goal you recently abandoned. Did you give up primarily because you ran out of motivation? That initial excitement just fizzled out? Or was it because the effort of fighting your daily inertia and the high cost of all those constant, immediate choices simply felt overwhelmingly high compared to the distant reward? Recognizing that friction is the first step toward reducing it.
Okay, now that we've established that effort is really that internal friction we feel when the cost outweighs the immediate subjective benefit.
Right.
We need to introduce the solution. And that solution is enthusiasm. To really understand it, we need to set up a critical comparison between two types of activities.
Both of which require a massive investment of energy.
A massive investment. We want to expose the paradox of high energy, zero effort.
So we're looking for the cognitive dissonance here. On one hand, you have the struggle to develop a new habit. That's the high friction task, like going for a run at 6 a.m., which so many of us dread.
And on the other hand, you have the immense energy we invest in something we already enjoy. The zero friction task, like staying up until 2 a.m. doing something totally non-productive, but fun.
Let's analyze a few case studies of that enjoyable energy investment. I mean, look at the sheer objective energy people pour into activities they like. This isn't trivial stuff.
Not at all.
Take the hobbyist who's obsessed with perfecting a video game score. This can mean intense focus for 10 hours straight.
Repetition until their hands ache. Learning complex patterns, strategic failure and recovery, intense mental calculation.
Objectively, that is taxing, focused, highly productive work. It's equivalent to a difficult day at the office.
And yet, they leap out of bed to do it. They call it fun.
Or, what about the person who takes immense pride in extreme organization?
Oh, that's a great one. They'll spend hours devising and executing these effective, deep cleaning methods. Moving furniture, scrubbing hidden corners, reorganizing entire closets.
That is significant physical labor. It's attention to detail, bending, scrubbing. It can consume a whole weekend.
And if their boss assigned them to clean the office for 8 hours on a Saturday, they would quit on the spot. But they choose to do it at home because they love the result. They call it productive self-care.
And the ultimate example, party planning.
Yes. Investing significant time, money, and social coordination energy just to make a friend's party or a family gathering unforgettable.
That is logistical stress, budgeting nightmares, and social diplomacy, often leading to total exhaustion.
But the person running the show is often fueled by a sense of purpose and anticipation, not by a sense of dread.
The paradox is really striking. These enjoyable activities often require equal or sometimes even greater amounts of physical and mental energy than the new habit we're dreading.
But they don't feel like effort. If the energy cost is objectively the same, why does the perception of effort just vanish in these chosen tasks?
The source material gives us a simple and I think game-changing answer.
Which is?
In those enjoyable activities, we can clearly see and feel the immediate positive benefit.
We actively seek out those benefits, and even though they objectively require energy, we don't experience that mental resistance. We don't think, ugh, I must force myself to spend money and time on this party.
No, we think, I cannot wait to see the looks on their faces and experience that connection.
This connection to the immediate payoff is absolutely crucial. Let's break down the true internal benefits.
Okay, let's take the video game. The benefit isn't the distant win screen.
No, it's the immediate feedback loop of competence. It's the feeling of mastery in the moment and the confirmation that your skill is improving right now.
What about cleaning? The benefit isn't just an organized space next week.
It's the immediate feeling of well-being, of control, and the visual peace that a clean space instantly provides to your senses.
And the party planning.
The benefit is the pleasure of shared, immediate great times, the feeling of being a generous host, the social and emotional reward that starts the minute the first guest arrives.
So because we actively seek out those immediate internal benefits, the drive that moves us is called enthusiasm.
We are not swimming against the current anymore. We're moving with it. Enthusiasm turns that energy into momentum.
And this is where we can bring in some of the science of success. because this mechanism of seeking immediate reward through enthusiasm is deeply connected to the brain's dopamine system. And we often misunderstand dopamine. We think of it as the pleasure chemical, but it's not. It's the seeking chemical. It's the neurological driver of anticipation.
That's a vital distinction. When you are doing something with effort, the dopamine is low because you're anticipating the pain of the effort, and the reward is too far off to trigger a seeking response.
But when you're pursuing something with enthusiasm, your brain is releasing dopamine because it's anticipating the immediate satisfying reward, the completion, the mastery, the emotional payoff, while you are still performing the task.
So in essence, enthusiasm is just turning the activity into its own immediate reward loop.
Right. So if you're enthusiastic about running, you aren't focused on the distant finish line of the marathon.
You're focused on the feeling of competence in your lungs, the rhythm of your feet, and the endorphin rush that happens 5 minutes into the run. The activity becomes its own immediate benefit.
This leads us to the central idea, the game changer that transforms effort into energy. We have to internalize this absolute truth.
What is it?
When we do not understand the immediate internal benefit, we do things through effort. We only see the energy cost and the distant reward.
But when we do understand the immediate internal benefit, we do them enthusiastically, because the anticipation of the reward becomes part of the action itself.
So the key to massive sustainable change isn't about developing an iron will. It's about developing clarity of purpose and, crucially, clarity of that immediate internal benefit.
If you are struggling, the problem is not your motivation or your willpower. The problem is your understanding of the immediate benefit. You're only seeing that distant, discounted reward.
Those who manage to turn their projects into successes, they're the ones who can genuinely see the benefits, not just logically, but in an emotionally resonant way.
And in doing so, they transform a difficult journey into one that feels valuable and, yes, even pleasurable.
So, for you, the listener, let's pause for another reflective question here. Think about something you genuinely enjoy doing that takes a lot of energy. Maybe it's competitive sports, detailed craft work, or studying a niche topic. What specific, immediate, internal benefit do you get from it? The flow state, the feeling of competence, the rush of discovery. What is it that helps you avoid labeling it as effort? If you can identify that immediate payoff, you have found the blueprint for enthusiasm. Okay, let's unpack a really common point of resistance here, because this is where the theory often breaks down for the skeptical listener.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Many of you might be thinking, that's not true. I started a diet knowing I would lose weight, or I started saving money knowing I'd be secure, but I still gave up.
I knew the benefit, and I still lacked enthusiasm.
Exactly.
That is the most important point of friction to address, because it illuminates the difference between the head and the heart. The source material clarifies this crucial distinction.
The distinction between merely knowing a fact
and truly understanding and internalizing the real deep emotional benefit. Knowing is an intellectual acknowledgement. Internalizing is an emotional experience.
Let's use 3 distinct areas to really illustrate this difference between that surface knowledge and deep emotional internalization.
Okay, let's start with health. The surface knowledge is,
I know I will be thinner in 3 months.
Right. It's a number on a scale. It's an external conditional benefit that relies on some future approval. It has very low dopamine potential because it's so distant.
So what's the deep understanding, the internalization?
The benefit is not just being thinner. It's about feeling lighter, having boundless energy for your children right now, feeling your clothes fit comfortably today.
It's knowing you are acting with self-respect.
Exactly. The internalization is, every time I choose the healthy option, I am honoring my body and gaining confidence. I am not punishing myself. I am empowering myself.
That shift from punishment to empowerment is massive. The superficial goal is aesthetic and external. The deep benefit is internal and empowering. It fights that cognitive load we talked about.
Now let's consider finance specifically, budgeting and saving.
The surface knowledge is, I know I will save $5,000 by the end of the year.
Logically correct, but it's a vague number far in the future. The immediate feeling is one of loss and deprivation. The immediate cost is not buying the new gadget.
So what's the deeper internalized benefit?
It's financial liberation and self-respect. It's the feeling that if a crisis hits tomorrow, you are not dependent on external aid. It's the quiet competence of knowing you're in control of your future.
So the internalization becomes,
every time I transfer money to my savings, I am buying myself future freedom. I am not a slave to debt or necessity. That feeling of self-reliance is an incredible source of emotional energy.
And this is where it gets really interesting, I think. True internalization means seeing the benefit as a form of profound liberation. When you are focused on freedom from anxiety, the momentary pain of deprivation skipping the gadget is just dwarfed by the massive internal reward of self-control.
Finally, let's look at career or work. Think about that tedious administrative task you always put off, like compiling monthly reports.
Surface knowledge. I know if I finish this report, my boss will be happy.
External validation. Conditional. It often comes with stress.
So what's the deep internalization? How can there be one for a boring report?
The benefit of finishing that tedious task isn't the finished product. It's the mastery of skill and the feeling of independence.
How so?
The internalization is, by finishing this complex, boring task with diligence, I am proving to myself that I am disciplined, reliable, and capable of handling complexity. The competence is my career insurance. It is my independence.
So the task shifts from being a punishment to an act of self-definition.
Precisely.
But practically speaking, how do we make that leap from just intellectually understanding to emotionally internalizing? How do we trick our brain into feeling this liberation if we don't feel it naturally, especially if we're starting from a place of dissatisfaction?
The source material suggests this is achieved through deliberate connection. Not just thinking about the outcome, but visualizing the internal feeling that the outcome generates.
So you have to use visualization techniques that focus on the emotional reality.
Yes.
So when I'm considering starting my run, I shouldn't just think, I'll be fit later.
No.
I should actively close my eyes for 30 seconds and try to feel the post-run clarity, the slightly sore but competent muscles, and the feeling of having already won the day.
Exactly that. You are manufacturing the anticipation that triggers the enthusiasm loop. You're using your imagination to shift that discounted, distant reward into an immediate felt anticipation.
This is how you generate that critical, preemptive dopamine release.
And when the benefit shifts from a surface goal, like a number, to a profound feeling of liberation, control, or well-being, the entire activity changes. It's no longer a punishment, a high-effort transaction.
It becomes an act of self-care and empowerment. A zero-effort pursuit.
We have to stop viewing these beneficial changes as a sacrifice, a payment in cognitive dollars.
And start viewing them as an investment in an immediate, internal emotional reward. The feeling of self-respect is the real currency here.
And that is why goals based on external pressures or superficial metrics are so fragile. If you're pursuing a goal just to impress other people, the moment that external validation fades or becomes hard to get, your energy source is cut off.
And effort rushes right back in.
But if you pursue a goal because it makes you feel powerful, competent, and free, that internal engine is robust, it's unstoppable. You've connected the activity to a core emotional need.
This means we have to become experts in identifying our own deep emotional payoffs. Not what society tells us is good, but what truly makes us feel liberated and competent.
Absolutely. The superficial goals are the fragile ones. We have to look beyond the logical outcome and identify the emotional reward it delivers. That deep understanding is the fuel for sustainable enthusiasm.
All right, let's ask a reflective question here for the listener. When you set a major goal, identify the surface benefit you typically focus on. Now dig deeper. What feeling of profound liberation or unshakable self-respect would achieving that goal truly give you? How can you manufacture the feeling of having already achieved it right now before you even start the hard work? Identify that internal feeling and you will find your unlimited source of enthusiasm.
Now we come to the final challenge. Because even when you achieve this profound level of internalized benefit, a common problem still comes up.
Right.
Since the goals that truly matter, the big ones, take time, it's just so easy to get discouraged when the visible physical results aren't immediate.
And this is the moment when that old inertia and the feeling of effort start creeping back in, isn't it? Even if you started with real enthusiasm.
It is. We tend to be terrible judges of our own progress. We focus on how much more we have to do rather than how far we've already come.
Our immediate subjective feeling of fatigue or stagnation, it just overwhelms the objective reality of small, consistent progress.
We are overly self-critical, and that self-criticism is the first weapon the old inertia uses against us.
So this raises a really important question. How do we maintain perspective and patience? How do we keep that flywheel of new inertia spinning when we can't see the final destination yet, and temporal discounting starts making that future reward look too small again?
The suggestion from the source material is straightforward, it's practical, and it's highly effective. You have to keep an objective record of your progress.
So we need objective data to counter that subjective self-criticism and our tendency to remember the setbacks more than the streaks.
This objective record acts as a shield against discouragement.
So why does objectivity work so well?
Well, first, that subjective feeling, that feeling of discouragement, of thinking, I haven't changed at all, it often ignores all the small, consistent steps forward. Your memory is faulty. It prioritizes dramatic, emotional setbacks. An objective record just bypasses your memory.
It's the difference between looking at a plant growing day by day, which looks static, versus taking a picture every week and then seeing the undeniable growth.
An objective record provides factual, indisputable proof of movement, even when you don't feel it.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Let's say your goal is to be a better public speaker. You might feel like your last presentation was a total disaster.
Right, you're focused on the one mistake you made.
But if your objective record shows that you've presented 5 times this month, where last month you presented 0, and that your average speaking time has increased by 2 minutes, you have undeniable evidence of progress.
And that evidence counters the self-critical voice.
The one that's trying to conserve energy by getting you to revert to the past. This record helps you stay optimistic. It keeps your eyes focused on the ultimate internalized benefit.
Because you're constantly reminded that you are moving toward that liberation, you're not just standing still.
It connects your current action to the future emotional reward. It bridges that gap created by temporal discounting.
There's a practical tool here we can use, right? The source mentions it.
Streak calendars. If your goal is consistency, say meditating for 10 minutes every single day, the primary enthusiasm comes from seeing that unbroken chain of X's on the calendar.
So the benefit isn't just the quality of the meditation you did today.
No, it's the sheer, visible evidence of your personal reliability. Breaking the streak becomes harder than maintaining it.
That's the new inertia in action, sustained by objective proof.
So objectivity is the mechanism that maintains enthusiasm when that initial rush fades. Enthusiasm gets you started by showing you the reward.
But objectivity sustains you by providing continuous, small, verifiable rewards, like microdoses of success.
Which keep that dopamine-seeking circuit active. This is patience through evidence. You stop demanding huge instant outcomes, and you start rewarding the consistent process.
So let's bring it all back home for the listener. What does all this mean for you if you're dissatisfied with your current situation?
It means the key to massive, sustainable change is not grinding through willpower and forcing yourself through misery.
It's about leveraging our natural human desire for immediate, profound benefit. It's about being smarter about motivation, not just tougher.
It's about changing the nature of the experience itself. Instead of seeing the activity as a tax or a cost you have to pay, you see it as a benefit you are already receiving.
Through competence, self-respect, and liberation.
We can summarize this entire journey into a powerful 3-step blueprint for massive, sustainable change. This is the application of that absolute truth we uncovered today.
Step 1. Identify the goal that currently requires effort. Maybe it's waking up early, budgeting, confronting difficult tasks. Recognize the high cognitive cost it currently carries for you.
Step 2. Stop focusing on the action and start focusing on the deeply internalized emotional benefit. Move from knowing I will save money to emotionally understanding I am liberated from financial anxiety. I am safe. I am competent.
Find that feeling of self-respect or freedom and use visualization to bring that feeling into the present moment.
And step 3. Track your small objective wins using visible metrics or streak calendars to maintain enthusiasm and patience over the long haul. Use data as your evidence against that subjective voice of discouragement.
This process fundamentally changes the definition of success. Success isn't just reaching the end point.
Success is making the journey feel enjoyable, or at least meaningful enough that the cost disappears. You are choosing the current that carries you, rather than constantly fighting against it.
A powerless mage presents final thought. Our source material asks us to consider this. If you adopt this idea and commit to truly understanding the liberation your goals offer, what new habit, that one difficult task you've always avoided, perhaps learning to code or taking on a new leadership role, could you embrace today that would feel less like a chore and more like a gift to your future self?
And let's broaden that application, as we discussed earlier. This understanding of effort versus enthusiasm doesn't just apply to personal habits. Consider how this framework could transform your work life. If you struggle with a task at work, what profound underlying benefit perhaps stability, independence, skill mastery, or team confidence, are you failing to internalize? And how could understanding that shift your approach from begrudging effort to motivated enthusiasm? That simple shift can make you not just more productive, but profoundly happier in your daily life by eliminating that constant friction.
This has been a deep dive from A Powerless Mage Presents, exploring how understanding the ultimate emotional benefit transforms the internal journey from struggle to lasting success.
Don't simply take our word for it. Put everything you heard here to the test. Make this knowledge truly yours.
We invite you to share your ideas, your thoughts, and your experiences in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this deep dive or found it useful, please like and subscribe to learn more about similar topics. Remember, the power is yours.
Woke up again with the weight in my chest. Told myself today I'd give it my best, but the hours move heavy, the mirror won't lie. By evening I'm empty, too worn down to try. I've got every reason lined up in my head, but the pull of the morning keeps me in this bed. They say push right through, say it's part of the climb, but I'm wading through concrete, falling behind.